been a while since I've featured any Tomb Kings on this channel, so let's jump into this replay from Captain T-List. Tomb Kings versus Dwarfs allows me the concept to talk about support in general and bringing all of your units to bear at the same time against a static opponent. Overall in this game, units should really never fight on their own. You always want to have units kind of supporting each other mutually, and when it comes to assaulting sort of a static opponent like this, when your own infantry are very slow, we look in here, Tomb Kings, all their skeleton infantry is going to be 28 speed, right? So we have here some Nekar warriors, lots of skeleton warriors, skeleton spearmen. Like the Carrion are obviously pretty quick, and then the monstrous actual kind of power killing tools here. Cetra the Imperishable up on his War Sphinx. We've got 2 Tomb Scorpions and 2 Tomb Princes. So all of these power units, anti-infantry, going to be good against the Dwarfs, are all very fast, or at least much faster than the infantry. So you have to be very patient, and especially given that Dwarfs sort of taking a tight static position here, Captain T-List also going very wide, looking for a full envelopment, which is going to take some time. So we're going to fast forward on the initial phase here. We've also got a couple of skeleton horseman archers for chasing routing units, shooting slayers, our artillery crew, general utility. On the dwarf side here, we've got Thoric Ironbrow leading the way. 3 bolt throwers, 2 engineers. Only one of them has the smoke bombs for whatever reason. Neither actually have restock, which is potentially an oversight, but we've also got some Iron Drakes here, a couple of Slayers, plenty of Miners with blasting charges, Dwarf Warriors. Pretty typical Dwarf build. The Iron Drakes are one that I see this occasionally against Tomb Kings. People think like, oh yeah, their lords are weak to fire. Weak to fire, when in fact the Trollhammer torpedoes are much more effective against large armored targets, like most Tomb Kings lords on their monsters or chariots or whatever they're going to bring for mounts. But anyway, we're back in action here, about 3 minutes, 30 seconds, and you can see the infantry, especially Nekar warriors, taking quite a bit of damage, which makes sense. They're the most expensive infantry here. Bolt throwers relatively short range, but now that they have infantry support, these power units are going to come in and start to fight the Dwarfs, which is what you want to do, right? With the Slayers fighting in, you can see how the Slayers and Dwarf Warriors are all getting caught up on these skeleton boys. It means they're not getting a full surround on these expensive single entities and dealing a lot more damage than they would otherwise. The Iron Drakes straying a little too far forward there, just get absolutely collapsed. The Scorpions are a little bit behind, but they'll still be able to get in combat with at least a handful of remaining infantry here. You've got these skeleton spears coming around. Nice fiery ring of Thori going to try and finish off those Nekar warriors, but of course the benefit of Undead is even while they're crumbling, they will still continue fighting more or less full strength, just taking a little bit of extra damage over time. Now the Scorpions getting involved as well, and Dwarf warriors, and Miners as well, they're not going to dish out much damage. Like the skeletons will absolutely lose, but other than the crumbling damage, they're really not going to be taking many hits from the Dwarfs here, so a little bit of a Rune of Wrath and Ruin, doing more friendly fire than anything, honestly. It's helping to speed that crumbling a little bit there, but in general, it's going to take the Dwarfs a lot of time to grind through those infantry, even if they do decisively lose, so that's great. That affords these power units plenty of time to come around and start to work. You can see Cetra going after the engineer here already. Enough skeletons have died to bring the Shabti summon, which is going to be used here to try and take down this other engineer. Both the chariots have been doing a great job cycle charging around. Master engineer, of course, not that great of a combatant. He's got 120 armor, but pretty low melee defense at only 30. Lowish weapon strength too, only 280 weapon strength, even though he has decent AP. That is quite anything under 300 is low, definitely. So these chariots both 350, 80 charge bonus, 75 for the Necrotech with a little bit of an anti-infantry bonus as well, 28. Wow, that is a significant anti-infantry bonus there. So that will mean they're going to be hitting with more than enough melee attacks, especially on the charge, to deal damage to those engineers. Same thing, these Ushabti, even though they don't have much attack, that anti-infantry bonus allows them to get consistent hits on the engineers. Rune of Doom being popped, allowing those dwarfs to just cut through the supporting skeletons a little bit faster, and the supporting skeletons are mostly gone. Even with that nice patient full envelopment, they're still only going to give you a certain amount of uptime basically for support. So given that they are starting to fall apart, Captain T-List here doing a great job kind of chasing routing units with the horse archers, with the carrions as well, coming in here using them for additional support once the skeleton infantry starts to run out. But nice curse going off here, flash bomb does slow down all of these Tomb King single entities and debuff their melee defense as well. The Incantation of Protection, Incantation of Curse Blades actually going for the Overcast to get the bonus versus large. Of course, Thorek on his Anvil of Doom does count as a large target, so that is actually a pretty good play there. Thorek has taken a pretty good amount of damage in this time. Rune of Oath and Steel being used. It's going to help the skeletons not do much damage, but they weren't doing much damage anyway. Definitely think Rune of Speed. If you're going to go in this matchup, I would say Rune of Wrath and Rune of Speed would be the two I would take. Rune of Slowness also can be very good, like here, to debuff any of these power units. To let the Slayers or the Engineers kind of shoot them or work them down in melee a little bit better. But in general, Dwarfs mostly just have infantry left. Nice angle finding the attack here for the Skeleton Horse Sergeants. A little bit of lapse by the Dwarfs, not protecting those bolt throwers, trying to get back online. A great use of the Horseman Archers there. And again here, finishing off these Iron Drakes. Cetra's, once again, casting that protection spell, just trying to finish off this Engineer here and not take so much damage from the Slayers in the process. As soon as these Iron Drakes sprout, those Horseman Archers are going to start shooting into the Slayers, of course. Again, very cost-effective here. Even that little bit of damage they do, not insignificant against a unit like Slayers. Meanwhile, over on the far side here, Tomb Prince popping his Elixir of Might, goes up to 488 weapon strength. Him and the Necrotech are trying to go 2v1 here on Thorek, and in fact, Captain Teela's is going to attempt to go 5v1 here on Thorek with both the Chariots, both the Tomb Scorpions, and Cetra all kind of moving in for the kill on Thorek. Wow, Dwarf takes a ride there. And with this kind of an extremely heavy assault here, it's not going to be enough. Rune of Doom is popped. Does allow the fear effect on the Dwarfs to not be subject to the fear of undead, so they're less likely to terror out. But Thorek just taking so much damage here, maybe even possibly going to get finished off. We'll see. We'll kind of keep his health bar up. Watch as Cetra chases him down here. The Chariots turn around, as do the Scorpions, to try and deal with this big blob of Dowie infantry. And yeah, while Thorek is definitely getting chased, doesn't look like the kitty's getting any swipes there, so a little bit unfortunate, but regardless, Army Losses takes hold with a giant terror rout. There's only a handful of Slayers left, and that is going to be game for the Dwarfs. I mean, it's unlikely they could have ground through these two Scorpions, right, with their 100 armor and anti-infantry, big sweeping splash attacks. We'll get it close here as the last of the Slayers make their stand. And it's going to be a victory for the Tomb Kings. Nice to see. Matchup can be a little bit tough. I will say I think the Dwarfs potentially lack a little bit of range tools to capitalize here. I think just having the smoke bomb on the other Engineer would have helped. And although maybe arguably having like a Thane to fight in melee would have helped as well, or else going with a different lord, like powerful fighter foot lords. I mean, Gotrek was also a hero you could take that would fit into that, right? Good anti-large AP character that can fight those monsters and Chariots in melee. The single entity's a little bit better. Like Ungrim as well would have been a good choice if you were to take a Rune Smith instead of Thorek. But anyway, fun build. Yeah, in terms of the single entities here, Cetra and the two Chariots all kind of equally paying out, which is nice to see. This Tomb Scorpions, neither of them paid for themselves, but they also took relatively little damage. The damage they did take was able to be restored by the Necrotech, which is nice. Excellent use of the Horseman Archers as well, even though one of them didn't pay for themselves. The Skeletons, I mean, very patiently got them into combat, and they all died, but that's okay, because they were, provided the necessary HP for these other units to get kills they needed. As for the Dwarf army here, Engineers don't pay for themselves. I mean, one of them does, one of them doesn't. Captain Teela's here did a good job keeping those Engineers occupied and not allowing them to fire. If you just kind of ignore them, they are going to tear down your single entities over time. Blasting charges do pretty well thinning out Skeletons. Dwarf Warriors also trade fairly decently, but kind of get run over by Chariots in the end. Definitely could have used more Slayers, no doubt, in this build. Bolt Throwers also a little bit of mistargeting priority at the start, going after infantry, and then just never switching back over to those single entity targets. Also, and he has a lot of infantry here to protect these, but even still, I'm just not the biggest fan of Bolt Throwers here. I think you could cut maybe one or two even, and just go with some other range tools. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. See you next time.